Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see 9th and as well as 10th December 2024 related current affairs. Actually we shifted our institute from pillar number 36 to pillar number 21. It is exactly about Vikas Book Center that is on second floor and third floor. If you want to visit us, you can come to this new branch now. Okay, so that is the main reason behind this delay in these 2 days current affairs. But I will be covering those current affairs obviously. Don't see that, and I will be also conducting daily current affairs quiz on those topics as well. Okay, so let us see our today's current affairs, and later on I will be showing you the yesterday's current affairs as well. Okay, let us see the first topic. So first topic, it is about reservation. So see the title guys, it is about reservation must not be based on religion, Supreme Court tells West Bengal. So actually this article is talking about the issue between Calcutta High Court and as well as Supreme Court related to reservation. So as you all know that the key word here is reservation in India. Okay, so in which subject you will be seeing this? In polity, from GS paper 2, you will be seeing about this reservation. And this reservation exactly in fundamental rights you will be seeing in Article 15 and Article 16 of our Indian Constitution, right? So if you see the history of reservation, we can go back to pre-independence. That means during British era also, we had this concept of providing reservation. Okay, so after we got independence in Article 15 and Article 16, yes, our government of India is providing reservation for certain caste people. So earlier we used to have caste-based reservation. So if you see the caste-based reservation, so we have SC, we have ST, and we have OBC, and we have economically backward class, that is EBC. So what is the percentage of reservation at present? For SCs, 15% of reservation, and for STs, 7.5% of reservation. And what about OBC? We have 27% of reservation. And recently, 103 Constitutional Amendment Act said that we have to provide 10% of reservation for this economically backward classes. So what is this concept of reservation? We are providing some affirmative action towards social and economically backward class. That means we are providing caste-based reservation in our country. But the issue is some states like Kerala, like Tamil Nadu, and even some other states, they are providing reservation based on religion. And reservation based on religion, actually, if you go through this Article 341 of Indian Constitution, it talks about this. Especially, you know that Dalits, which comes under scheduled caste, they will be getting reservation. But if Dalits, they are shifted to this Christians or like Buddhist, that is Dalit Christians and Dalit Buddhist, they are not entitled to this reservation according to the caste. So this is the issue now. And now here, what are the judgment is given by this Calcutta High Court? So Supreme Court now said that yes, reservation should be given for socio-economically backward classes. It should not be based on religion anymore. So it is not the main intent of providing a reservation. So why government is providing reservation? To uplift these people who are belonging to the scheduled caste or scheduled caste people or economically or socially backward classes, they need to get affirmative action. Why? Based on religion. So you know that India is a secular country. That means all religions are equal before the law, right? So why we have to provide religion based reservation? No, it should not be the thing that the Supreme Court which said. But actually Supreme Court said this thing orally, but the final hearing is there on January 7th. And on this January 7th, we will be getting the final judgment on this so that you can get details of this case and what are the earlier cases regarding reservation based on religion and which state is providing this religion based reservation. So you have to know about that. But as of now, remember about fundamental rights. fundamental rights which are talking about reservation, and you have to see this category like, so which caste people are getting how much amount, how much reservation, and you have to see about this recent 103 Constitutional Amendment Act, which is giving like 10% of reservation for this economically backward class. And even you have to know Indra Sahane case. And recently in the Sahane case also uphold that yes, these people they need 10% of reservation. Clear? Okay, now let us see what exactly this article is talking about. So Supreme Court of India stated that reservations should not be based on religion. So recently, West Bengal government made an appeal regarding this Calcutta High Court judgment, and here High Court ruled that it invalidated its policy, including certain Muslim communities in this OBC list. So why in this OBC list you have to include these Muslims? So if these Muslims they are really coming under the socio-economic backwardness, yes, we can give that. So that is the some important appeal which given by this West Bengal government, and now Supreme Court is going to take this final hearing on January 7th. Okay, now if you see the key important facts regarding this reservation system, so reservation system in India, it is a policy of affirmative action, that is positive action which is taken by the government for upliftment of certain unprivileged societies, especially belonging to socio-economic disparities, and they want to promote social inclusion in case of education and in case of public employment. And this system primarily benefits who? That is scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs and EWS, and even people with disabilities are also having certain quota of reservation. And the scheduled caste status, which under this article 341, which is saying that it is limited to Hindus, Sikhs and Buddhists, and Muslims and Christians, they are excluded from this category. So here the case had been filed on this article 341 because it is limiting providing of reservation for Muslims and as well as Christians. So which could be considered as form of religion-based reservation. Why the people who are converted into this Dalits from this Christians, they are not able to get this reservation under this SC. So this is the thing. And if you see here, what are the factors which are influencing this religion-based reservations? What is the history of this emergence? So as you all know that Mandal Commission. So Mandal Commission recommended how much percentage of reservation for social and economically backward people? That is 27%. And this report had been accepted, and finally this 27% of reservation for OBC had been given under this Mandal Commission report. And not only that, even reservation demands from various religious communities, like during 1960s and 1980s, there were also increasing of demands from various religious communities, including Muslims, for reservations based on social and educational backwardness. Okay, and even you know that if the people who belong into any religion per se, if they are citizens of India and if they are social and economically backward, obviously they have to get the reservation. So that is the thing which mainly said here. And you have to see the important cases and decisions regarding this OBC reservation. And actually now here the issues and debates are going on based on this religion-based reservation which is happening now in India. Okay, that's it, nothing more. And see this article, Union government named Sanjay Malhotra as RBI governor. Who is the former governor of RBI? Shaktikant Das. So now he is 26th governor of RBI. So his name is Sanjay Malhotra. So do you know the process of appointment of this RBI governor? Who will be appointing this RBI governor? Government of India. So what is this RBI? Reserve Bank of India, which is Central Bank of India. Okay, so here you have to know about what is this RBI and when this RBI was formed. Any idea? 1935. So it formed under RBI Act of 1935. That means even before we got independence, this institution was there, right? Okay. And what are the functions of this RBI? Okay, to regulate inflation, it have this monetary policy. Apart from this, okay, allocation of loans to banks. Next, okay, printing currency. So which kind of currency can be printed? Notes and except 1 rupee. Rest all. Okay, apart from this, apart from this, yeah. Next. Okay, maintaining reserve, forex reserves. Next. Okay, do government conduct any elections for this governor of RBI? So he's also governor, right? Do government conduct any elections? Did you participate in that elections? No. That means there will be no elections for this RBI governor. But who will appoint him? Directly government of India. Okay. So is there any committee which will be recommending the names of the person to be elected? Okay. So what is that committee name? I want the name of that committee which will be recommending this RBI governor. Okay, at least tell me who will be appointing president or prime minister or finance minister. Who will be? Oh, finance minister. Do that finance minister have that much power to appoint this RBI governor? Okay, committee members will be recommending the name, but who will appoint? Oh, president or prime minister? Wow, PM, president. Okay. Next, is there any qualifications? Any qualifications to that person? Or else government can show the discretion. Can government show the discretion or not? No? Yes. You will be getting this kind of question. So government is having discretion. Government is conducting elections. Government is having committee. And you have to know the members of committee. So this topic is very, very important. And you have to remember, now present we have 26th governor. And can you tell me what is the tenure of this RBI governor? 3 years. 3 years. So can that tenure can be increased in any condition or not? Is it fixed? So what is the tenure of present governor? Present governor, since how many years he working? After BJP came into power. So BJP is in power from last 3 terms. Can we say from last 15 years? No, right? Okay, so this topic is very important. See the important facts. So now central government had announced the appointment of Sanjay Malhotra as 26th governor of Reserve Bank of India. And actually, Shaktikanta Das, he had 6 years of tenure. Okay, so here, what is the procedure of appointment of this governor? So actually, it is entirely a political one. It is very important. So government can show discretion in case of appointment of the governor of RBI. Though an appoints committee is a formal vehicle which is designated for shortlisting of candidates for this job, but Prime Minister office, that is PMO, will choose the governor after consulting finance ministry and as well as who is the governor who is outgoing. That means in the case of this 26 a 25th governor, that is Shaktikanta Das, and as well as finance ministry is consulted to finalize this person, and entirely for name's sake we have appointment committee, but entirely government will be showing discretion in case of this governor. And RBI governor is appointed after proposal which is made by Financial Sector Regulatory Appointment Search Committee. So you will be getting a question like, which of the following committee is recommending the names for RBI governor? It is FSRAS, that is Financial Sector Regulatory Appointment Search Committee, which is headed by, very important, it is not by Finance Minister, it is Cabinet Secretary. And what is the term of RBI governor? So actually, the governor and deputy governors, they hold office for the periods of not exceeding this 5 years. But again, we have discrimination, and even there is a large amount of the discretion which can be shown by the governor. Okay, and even governor is eligible for reappointment or extension according to RBI Act. So normally in India, according to BIS survey says that the term here is 5 to 6 years in India. Okay, so these are the important facts. And see this frigate, INS Tushil, commissioned into the Indian Navy in Russia's Kaliningrad. What is this article? Is about INS. What is INS? Indian Naval Ship. Okay, Indian Naval Ship Tushil. So here there is a chance of getting a prelims question like recently INS Tushil is in use. It is a collaboration of which and which country? It is India and Russia. Can you tell me, is there any other equipments that we got from Russia? INS Vikramaditya. Next, BrahMos. Okay, BrahMos. Yes, 400 Triumph missiles. Next, S-400 Triumph missiles, INS Vikramaditya. Next, BrahMos. Other than this, so most of our defense equipment that we will be getting from Russia. Other than Russia, can you tell me other defense partners of India? Huh? France. From France, which thing we are getting? Rafale. Next, US, from US, what are the things that you are getting? Which helicopters? Recently in use. Come on, tell me. Recently in use. What are the things? Tell me fast. Okay, other than US, which is the one important partner from West Asia? Today West Asia done, right? Which is a country from which we are getting defense equipment? West Asian country. From Israel, what we are getting? From Israel, which equipment? Third is US. From Israel. Go back to the defense. Okay, MH-60R helicopters. Next. From Israel, which missile we are getting? Missile. Isha. Science and technology gone into space. In defense, which missile we are getting from Israel? Search it. Okay. See here, this article is talking about INS Tushil. So what are the things that you have to know? First of all, you have to link with our syllabus. It belongs to Science and Technology from GS paper 3. And next one is, it belongs to which kind of technology? Whether it is a warships, or whether it is a defense, or whether it is space technology, or whether it is nanotechnology, or whether it is computers or robotics, it comes under our defense equipment. Okay, so here you have to see with which country we are collaborating with. So it is India and Russia. And next you have to see to which class it belongs to. And you have to see what are the special features of this. And this is very important from your prelims. From your prelims, it is very important. Okay, now let us see some features of this. India and Russia, they will enter a new era of cooperation by taking advantage of each other expertise in areas such as artificial intelligence, cyber security, space exploration, and even counterterrorism. And actually, we are going to have this sheath-guided missile frigate INS Tushil. So actually, one important point you have to remember is, whenever you're talking about defense, always we'll be thinking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. That means self-reliant India, right? That is nothing but Make in India projects. So here in this also, India and Russia both are collaborating, and about 26% of development is from India. That means you are also ensuring India is involving in this development of this INS switch. That means we can also add this as part of our Make in India, and as well as Atmanirbhar Bharat, and self-sufficient in our defense sector. Self-sufficient in defense sector, and as well as Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense, and as well as Make in India concept. And even whenever you are writing about India-Russia relations, so one area of improvement in relation bilaterally between India and Russia is INS Tushil development. So there also you can use this point as a value added point. Okay, if you see, this is INS Tushil. So it is having the capability of carrying 12 BrahMos missiles and also other missiles, and as well as it will be also helpful for halting of helicopters. You can see this is also a helicopter point, and by using this we can also launch air-to-air missiles and land-to-air missiles. So we can use this for multi-purpose missile launching as well. So this is that INS Tushil. Okay, so actually what is this frigate? Frigate is a type of warship which is designed for various naval operations, and we can also go for escorting. What is the meaning of escorting? Have you heard this word escort? If any important people are moving, before two guards will be there, and after we will be having guards, right? So in the same way, this INS Tushil will be also useful for escorting of larger vessels. For security purpose also, we can use them. And next one is we can also use them for patrols, and we can also use them for combat with enemy ships, and even we can also combat for aircraft, submarines, etc. And next one, if you see here, it is having a multi-role sheath guided missile frigate, and it is belonging to Krivak 3 class of frigates. So as you all know that in India we have this INS Arigant, INS Vikrant. They belongs to which class? They belongs to which class? Uh, INS Arigat, INS Vikram, Vikrant. So which class of things they belongs to? So actually it is the high class. So Russian country developed this Krivik 3 class, and it is one of the most advanced technology they are using in Russia, and it is seventh variant from this Krivak 3 class of Russia. You have to remember this. It is seventh. It is seventh variant of this Krivak 3 class frigates, and we are getting very advanced technology from Russia. So whenever we are talking about technology transfer from the different countries, obviously every time we will be discussing that we will be getting old technology that had been outdated in that countries, but for the first time we are getting seventh variant of this Krivak advanced technology from Russia. It is one important development between India and Russia relations. Okay, that's it. So see this article, National Food Security Act still driven by figures from 2011 census, lawyer tells Supreme Court. So what is this article talking about? National Food Security Act. So when this act came into existence? Year 13. So what is the important aim of this act? Why government came up with this act? Okay, food security. So because of this act which came into existence, do we achieve any development? I'm not talking about growth, I'm talking about development. Is there any development? How? Poverty had been decreased. Next, food security had been increased, and malnutrition is addressed, and even to some extent we also decreased hunger. Okay, so which sustainable development goals are related to this? Okay, 2. What is 2? Zero hunger. Next, well-being. 3. Next, poverty. Okay, next. How poverty is related to this food security? So if they are getting food, they will be healthy and they will do more amount of work, so that their earnings will be increased. Obviously, their poverty will be decreased. Apart from this, which sustainable development goals are related to this National Food Security Act? What is 11? Sustainable livelihood. Okay, next. Yes, decent work. So there are many sustainable development goals. They are related to this scheme. You have to mug up them. Okay, so here this article is saying that National Food Security Act is still driven by figures of 2001, which is said by lawyer to Supreme Court. So why this lawyer is much concerned about this? Why he is concerned about this date of 2000? What happens if we are following that data? Okay, so here we are following now 2011 census data, and now we are in present 2024, almost end of 2024, right? So is there any population increase or decrease which may happen? Just guess. Population increase or decrease? Obviously, for sure, 100% there will be increasing of population. That means the people who are coming under this BPL, what is BPL? Below poverty line, will be increased or decreased according to your guess? Obviously increase. That means many people who are eligible to get food grains under this Food Security Act, they are losing their right of getting subsidized food grains. That means there is no food security for number of people. That is the thing which mainly highlighted here. So if you want to achieve this sustainable development goals of zero hunger, poverty, decent living, livelihood, everything, we need to ensure that every eligible person, that is citizen of India, need to be covered under this Food Security Act. This is the thing which mainly said by lawyer to Supreme Court. Clear? So here just to see about what is this National Food Security Act of 2013, and you have to see what are the provisions of this act, and you have to see what are the advantages, and you have to see what are the challenges. Can you tell me what are the challenges now under this act? Do all people who are eligible, they are getting that? Is there any misuse of this act? Like everyone who is having like 20 tulas of gold or having house, having cylinder, are they getting this food grains or not? Do you know? That means there are a lot of loopholes. That means targeted people, they are not getting the benefit from the scheme. So if targeted people, they are not getting benefits, then is there any useful of the scheme? Use of the scheme? No, right? So that is the thing which mainly highlighted here. So if you are getting this 2024 data or like 2025 data, we can properly go for targeted scheme delivery. So whenever we are having this targeted scheme delivery, whenever we are targeting the person who exactly wants that, then only we can ensure development in our country. Until and unless if you are not targeting the people, can we achieve this Viksit Bharat of 2047? What is this Viksit Bharat? Developed India by 2047. Can we achieve that target? No, right? So that is the thing which mainly highlighted here. And you have to list down at least 4 to 5 challenges here, advantages. And next you have to link it with sustainable development goals which can be achieved because they have to achieve by 2030. That means we are having a very less amount of time. Okay, so we are having just 5 to 6 years of time to reach this target. So if you are not targeting the people who particularly require that help, then we can't achieve this target. And even 2047 Viksit Bharat target can also be not achieved. So for all these things, we have to focus on data. Data is very important for proper policy implementation and proper policy making. Okay, see this article. In energy dependent world, the issue of food security. So what are the keywords here? First one is food security and second one is energy dependent. So can you tell me like what is the link between this energy and as well as food security? So how can we ensure food security? How will we getting food? Agriculture? Okay. Agriculture. So actually I want to give you a hint. So this article is linking about energy and as well as agriculture. Now tell me what is the link between energy and agriculture. Come on, tell me the possible things that comes into your mind. Okay, irrigation. What is irrigation exactly? Tell me, explain on that. Irrigation. Okay, irrigation. We are going for water intensive. So what? Next. Okay, groundwater exploitation. Okay, next. Next. Yes, very good. Electricity. So we need more electricity to draw the water. And from where we are getting electricity? Huh? Okay, electricity sources. Please tell me that. Okay, coal, wind, hydro. Next. So out of these three, from where we are extracting maximum energy, maximum on coal. Yes, India's energy is based on coal. That means whether we are using fossil fuels. So actually this article is saying that we are using more amount of fossil fuels for production of food grains. That means indirectly we are releasing carbon dioxide emissions. So whenever carbon dioxide emissions is increasing, then what we are doing? Climate change. Again, this is affecting agricultural productivity. And now the big question is, can we ensure food security? Everything is interlinked, right? Are you getting now? Yes. So here, For production of agriculture, for production of food itself, we are doing irrigation. Irrigation is very important. So for irrigation, we are using electricity. So especially this electricity is coming from fossil fuels that in turn leads more carbon dioxide emissions. Again, climate change that will be having impact on this agriculture production or food security. So because of these things, India is not going to ensure proper food security in the future. Is that concept clear? So that is the thing. So from which subject we can connect this? Now tell me. From GS paper 3, environment and ecology. Huh? GS paper 2, governance, because I'm talking about food, hunger, food security. Next, agriculture comes under GS paper 3 under economy. Next, we have to use some technology for this, so that we have to move from alternate energy sources, that is renewable energy sources. Can I include in science and technology? So food security, if you are not providing or ensuring that, it will be having impact on whom? Society. Can I include in GS paper 1 and 2, society and social issues? Next. So if we are not ensuring food security, will people will be going in a right way? There will be increasing of crimes and everything. Can we connect it into GS paper 4, ethics? Ethics, morals. Economy I wrote here. Next. All papers. Can you write an essay here? Is it an essay? Sustainable Development Goals also, SDGs. And yeah, even we can connect from international relations, because now we are learning agriculture practices from Western Asian countries. So how they are increasing the food productivity, even they are having very less groundwater practice, especially from Israel we are learning this, like agriculture practices. So that comes under international relations. Clear? Okay. Now let us see what exactly this article is saying. So World Bank emphasizes that food insecurity and energy poverty are interlinked crises. It is threatening not only India but even the globe. Every country is interlinked with this food insecurity and as well as energy poverty, because most of the countries, so leave this developed countries apart. So developing and as well as least developed countries, still they are dependent on this EFF fossil fuels. There is no complete transformation towards renewable energy sources in these countries. So here world is having energy poverty. So because of this, it is not ensuring food security in the world. Okay, now let us see 7 important points that you have to remember. So first one is the nature of food and energy security, which necessitates an integrated policy, because each and everything is interrelated and it is like a cyclical process. So we need to have a proper policy solutions. So without that, we cannot get proper strategy of ensuring food security for the people across the globe. And because of environmental impact or because of climate change, obviously it is having impact on agriculture, because we depended on fossil fuels for the production, for irrigation and for transportation. So because of this, again the issue is sustainability, whether we will be sustainable in the long term future or not. And next one here is we have to move towards eco-friendly practices. Like for example, if you are using trains, we can use green hydrogen based trains for transportation, and rather than using our personal vehicles, we can use this public transport system for the transportation. And even railways also coming up with new developments in infrastructure for long shelf life of perishable goods that we discussed in recent classes. So like that, we have to go for some eco-friendly practices so that we can enhance transportation. And next one here is we can focus on energy price shocks. Even there is lot of volatility in energy prices, so that it can have an impact on destabilizing our food system as well. Okay, so those are the things that you can see. And last topic here is Indians need right to disconnect. What is this right to disconnect? And tell me recently which country came up with this concept of Australia. So why Australia came up with this? So which article we can connect, we can relate with this from India point of view? Article 21, which talks about right to life and personal liberty. So what do you know about this right to disconnect? Can they disconnect entirely from the office? So after office times, it is not compulsory for them to attend mails or any messages or any calls. Okay, do you know recently Japan also adopted this because of one important reason, to increase its population. To increase its population, they came up with this right to disconnect, because as you all know that Japan comes under developed country where old age population is very high. So even in your population pyramids topic of your human geography also, you will be seeing bell shaped. Okay, bell shaped. Okay, so that is a concept that you can see here. So just you can use this right to disconnect whenever you are writing your ethics answers and even in your essay also. So for that you have to know this concept. And actually this article is saying that we can come up with this right to disconnect concept even in India. For that you have to know about this, what is right to disconnect. So recently a significant labor reform came up by Australia which granted this legal right to disconnect from work outside of their designated hours. After their designated hours, for example, office timings is 9 to 5. So in this 9 to 5, they have to attend and they have to do all the office works. After once he come out of office after 5, it is not compulsory for him to open his mail and check the mails and to give the reply, or whenever he's getting WhatsApp messages or any calls, it is not compulsory for him to attend. So if he is having the will, yes, he can do that, but it is not compulsory. This is this meaning of right to disconnect. And even you can add about this Japan example as well. And even France actually came up this kind of right to disconnect even in 2017 as well. Okay, and now let us see ninth current affairs. So first one, here you can see this image. So what is this image is about? Three colors. Three colors. Uh, okay, Air Force Air Show. So where? How many of you watched that? Except you. You're very busy. Okay, so who will do this air show? Which? Huh? Indian Air Force. So what is the team called as? There is a specific name for that team. Yes, Surya Kiran. Okay, so Surya Kiran aerobatic team will be performing this kind of shows. So which equipment or what are these equipments called as? Like which is the system or instruments? Uh, name, name. MiG. Uh, next. So what are the names that you know? Defense equipments, Air Force equipments, jets. Next. Um, next. So don't you know? You have to know that. So if you have responsibility to watch, you have to know what is the things that they use there. So actually this team was formed in year 1996. Actually they started this kind of shows by using 4 jets, but now it had been increased to. So what is the last number that you watched? 7, not 7. So how many numbers of equipments are using now? 9. Yes. So initially they started with 4 and they reached now 9. So they can use this 9 equipments and they will perform air show now. So you have to know that. And next one here is, yes. So this team is also called as 52 Squadron or the Sharks. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, see this article? Very important. Center to set up anti-drone unit to secure border with Pakistan, says Amit Shah. So what is happening across India-Pakistan border? Always infiltration. Apart from that, they also started using of drones for illegal drugs trafficking and as well as arms trafficking. So we have to be very much careful regarding providing security across our India-Pakistan border. So please tell me, which are the states sharing boundary with India and Pakistan? Especially Indian states. Indian states sharing boundary with Pakistan. Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, J&K. Next. Okay, which state is sharing largest boundary with Pakistan? That's why you have to see map. One is saying Rajasthan, one is saying Jammu, one is saying Punjab. Uh, Rajasthan or Punjab? No. Punjab. See that. Okay, so why we have to develop this anti-drone system? Is it necessary? Anti-drone technology, is it necessary or not? It is mandatory. So tell me, what are the applications? What are the applications of this anti-drone technology, guys? What we can do? Anti-drone means we can directly strike down the drones. Next. Okay, tell me at least advantages of this anti-drone technology. Providing safety and security. Next. Okay, proper surveillance and monitoring. Next. We can protect our air bases because they attacked our air bases last year. Next. To protect life of soldiers. Next. Next. Okay, let us see this article. So who will be taking care of defense? Which ministry? Defense ministry. Next. Especially, yes, home affairs. Okay, our Union Home Minister announced the plans to establish a comprehensive anti-drone unit to enhance our border security, especially at India-Pakistan boundary, because there is increasing of threats of drones across this border. And we are going to have a new laser-equipped anti-drone system now, so that we can increase drone neutralization rates efficiently. Okay, so it comes under part of comprehensive integrated border management system, and we are improving our border security further. So especially you have to know about increasing of drone menace is happening across India and Pakistan border. For that we can increase our border security, and it will be helpful for addressing of those border security challenges. And even it will be helpful for national security as well. And even it will be helpful for collaboration with the other sectors as well, like defense, research, border forces, so that we can come up with the effective solutions for our problems now. And we can also enhance our security framework along the critical borders. And we can also focus on our vibrant village program. So what is this vibrant village program is about? Which country? India and China. So China is developing model villages across our India-China border so that it can claim easily Tawang region of Arunachal Pradesh. So to counter that, we are coming up with vibrant village program where we are going for community development, community awareness. Okay, so that we can ensure our borders. Okay, that is the thing. And see this article. FDI inflows into India cross 1 trillion. What is FDI? Foreign direct investment. So why we need this foreign direct investment? What are the advantages of this FDI? Employment, next. Investments, economic growth, employment opportunities, standard of living, so that which sustainable development goals we can achieve. Again, there is a relation here. So as well as this article is saying that yes, there is increasing of FDI into India when we are comparing with April 2020 to September 2024 period. Okay, which ministry or which department will be taking care of this FDI or FIA? Department of DP, that is Department of Promotions, Industries and Internal Trade. That is very important. So just see about what is FDI and FII, what are the difference between this FDI and FII, why FDI is good for a country and why FPI or FII is not good. So it is called as hot money. Why? So why FPI is called as a hot money? Foreign portfolio investment is called as a hot money. Why? Whenever they want, they can withdraw them and they can fly away. So because of that, that will lead to withdraw of dollars from our country. That means what happened? Depreciation or appreciation? Indian rupee value will be decreasing and dollar value will be increasing. That means there is decreasing of value of Indian rupee. So Indian rupee value decreasing, is it good for our country? It will lead to economic instability. Okay, so all these things that you have to see from application part. And see this article. Study brings Indian star tortoise to evidence-based conservation. Every time if there is any space in news, it may be animal, it may be insect, or it may be butterfly, or it may be plants, it is very important. So, and this species Indian star tortoise. So what is the category of production of this Indian star tortoise? Under CITES, under IUCN Red List, under appendix 1. Okay, what about IUCN? Endangered or critically endangered? So what is the difference between endangered, critically endangered, and vulnerable? So what is the criteria? I asked this question, I think. 90% of decreasing of population, that comes under critically endangered. Endangered is 50%. What about vulnerable? 20%. So you have to see this. Okay, so this article is saying that Indian star tortoise is endemic to subcontinent. Endemic means nothing but it can be seen only in India. But if you go to any other country, you can't see the species. So this Indian star tortoise is endemic to subcontinents, and even especially some areas which we are bordering with Pakistan and Sri Lanka also we can see. And Indian star tortoise is listed under Appendix 1 of CITES, and even it is protected under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act. And actually, there is illegal poaching of this animal which happens. So because of this, we have to take evidence-based conservation. That means wherever we are getting evidence of poaching or trafficking of these animals, so we have to go for proper conservation so that we can maintain the number of this star tortoise. Okay, so that is the thing. And the next topic is like contaminated water issue which happened in which state? Tamil Nadu. So is that good for a government? So how many people died? 3 people. So this article is saying that governments need to ensure safety of piped water, and even government needs to increase the coverage of providing of this piped water coverage for huge number of people by ensuring safety. That is the thing which mainly said. That's it. Already we discussed this topic in our earlier class. And there is one more article. The issue of India's economic growth versus emissions. Again, many articles, especially editorials, you are getting regarding climate change, impact on society, climate change, impact on environment, climate change, impact on economy, like that. So here, try to take this topic of climate change, and you have to see what is the impact of this climate change in different subjects of you. For example, how NGOs are taking care, or how they are raising about the cases regarding climate change. So recent examples of NGO, which is your part of your governance. And next you have to take like how it is having impact on your economy, how it is having impact on the biodiversity, how it is having impact on your society, how it is having impact on your ethics, like how the behavior is changing, how the morals of people is changing. Because in your ethics you have this topic called as environmental ethics also. So how it is impacting that. So try to take one A4 size paper today, and in middle write about climate change, and you can write the different subjects. So this is the work I want to give you, and this is most important. Keep climate change in between, and you have to see what are the political dimensions. And next one here is from history, like what are the changes which are happening. And from environment and ecology, you have to see this climate conventions, etc. And you have to see important deals and agreements, their names and their provisions, and what is the impact on society, what is the impact on this environmental ethics, what is the impact on your economy, what is the impact on science and technology, like how we have to improve our research and development accordingly. Okay, and so what are the subjects you have? So wherever it is possible, try to write at least 5 points with data and evidences. So that will be very helpful to tackle any question regarding this climate change, or else you may get directly essay. If you are getting essay also, you can write minimum 8 to 9 dimensions with the data. So this is very important. So if you do this, you can handle whatever the question that will come from climate change point of view. And even you have to see what are the causes of this climate change. Okay, clear? So these are the important topics that appeared in our today's Hindu newspaper and as well as yesterday's paper. So by this I'm concluding. Thank you so much guys for watching. And please do like this class and share this class to your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to Rathod's IAS Academy. Thank you.